Resilience, we are strong, shoulder to shoulder, keep moving on. Resilience, make a new plan, stand up again and say yes we can. Resilience, we are strong, shoulder to shoulder, keep moving on. Resilience, make a new plan, stand up again and say yes we can. Resilience, we are strong, shoulder to shoulder, keep moving on. Resilience, make a new plan, stand up again and say yes we can. Resilience, we are strong, shoulder to shoulder, keep moving on. Resilience, make a new plan, stand up again and say yes we can.
Sometimes the mist overhangs my path, and blackening clouds about me cling. But oh, I have a magic way to churn the gloom to cheerful day, I softly sing. And if the way grows darker still, shadowed by sorrow's somber wing, with glad defiance in my throat, I pierce the darkness with a note, and sing, and sing. I brood not over the broken past, nor dread whatever time may bring. No nights are dark, no days are long, while in my heart there swells a song, and I can sing.
Resilience, we are strong, shoulder to shoulder, keep moving on. Resilience, make a new plan, stand up again and say yes we can. Resilience, we are strong, shoulder to shoulder, keep moving on. Resilience, make a new plan, stand up again and say yes we can. Resilience.
Welcome to Minneapolis College's annual celebration of the work of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I am honored to join you in reflecting on how Dr. King's work so many years ago remains relevant to the work that we as a community so desperately need to focus on today. To maintain COVID-19 safety protocols, this year's event is an online experience. I promise you an enlightening celebration, and I invite all of us to reflect on how we, in our own lives and communities, can advance the values Dr. King stood for, values that we share. Today, we are experiencing increasing levels of discord and division. Right here in our own community, we witness daily examples of injustice, with our fellow citizens being marginalized or made to feel unsafe. This year, with issues of race and inequality on our minds, it is especially appropriate that we remember Dr. King, who did so much to promote opportunity, social justice, and respect for the human dignity of all. We should see Martin Luther King's name not so much as a noun describing an historic figure, but rather as a verb calling us to action. His gifted words inspire us to dream big, and his tireless deeds on behalf of others guides us in the right direction. He has passed on this legacy to each of us, with the expectation that we speak and act every day as though he was walking right along beside us. In the words of Dr. King, now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. It is our turn to push forward on this journey Dr. King invited all Americans to join. Minneapolis College boldly proclaims our commitment to becoming an anti-racist institution. Through our equity statement, we publicly reaffirm our promise to help create an equitable future. During today's event, you will hear many voices and you will feel the importance of their words. They bring us hope that social justice will become a reality. Thank you for joining us today to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. And thank you for carrying forward this work, because now is the time.
Hi, I'm Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an inspiration and an example for all Americans then, in his time, and now. His work holds special meaning for people like me because I like to say as Secretary of State, I'm in the democracy business. Famously in the late 1950s, Dr. King made clear that voting rights was going to be and needed to be a cornerstone of the civil rights movement. He once said in a famous address, quote, "Give us the ballot, and we will transform the salient misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs into the calculated deeds of good citizens," end quote. That was true then, and it's true now. The work that we do, along with so many other partners around the state and around the nation, is about what's promised in our shared democracy. The ability to determine how our communities are governed, how our resources are shared, and how families can thrive. Minnesota, it has to be said, has led the nation in voter turnout. In the last election in 2020, nearly 80% of eligible voters in Minnesota voted. That's something we're very proud of, and it was the third time in a row that Minnesota was #1 in the country in voter turnout. And sometimes I get asked why that is, and it's an important occasion today to think about why that is, because it bears on Dr. King's legacy. People say, well, why is it? What is it about Minnesota that has us participating year in and year out in such high numbers? And I like to point to two things in particular: laws and culture. When it comes to laws, we are blessed in Minnesota that we have very good ones. Not perfect. There's some I would remove. There were many more that I would add. But in Minnesota, we have a good and stable and pro-voter set of laws that really puts a premium on access. What is easiest and most convenient for the average, everyday eligible voter? Things like same-day voter registration, things like online voter registration, and things like the ability to vote from home or by mail for any reason whatsoever without having to provide some specific excuse. So when it comes to laws, and laws, by the way, that were put on the books almost exclusively on a bipartisan basis, Democrats and Republicans cooperating over the last 40 or 50 years, that puts us in a really good place. But what about culture? That's tougher to get our arms around. It's tougher to come up with an exact definition. But what I would say about that is that Minnesota has a long legacy of valuing everyone's voice and everyone's vote. And let me give you a very important example historically that was part of Dr. King's legacy. In 1965, of course, Congress voted on the Voting Rights Act. What anyone who looks at American history would say was probably one of the top 10 laws ever passed by the United States Congress in the history of this country in terms of importance and impact. But it was controversial at the time. Hard to believe that now, but back then it was a subject of real controversy. People felt strongly on both sides of the Voting Rights Act. And Minnesota at the time had a congressional delegation that was divided in half. We had 8 members of the House of Representatives that we sent to Washington. 4 were Democrats, 4 were Republicans, evenly divided. And yet, when the roll was called on the Voting Rights Act in the summer of 1965, Minnesota spoke with one voice. Every single member of the Minnesota congressional delegation, whether they were Democrats or Republicans, whether they were from a rural area or the metro area, it didn't matter. They all spoke with one voice and voted yes. We were one of the relatively few totally unanimous states. Despite Minnesota's advantages over the years, we still have a lot more work to do. Yes, we were #1 in the country in voting. That's true, at nearly 80%, but that means about 20% of eligible voters are not voting. So we have a lot of work to do because there are still people who are or feel excluded. And I think part of the solution is legislative. It's passing more and additional laws that will safeguard the right to vote. That's why I support, for example, automatic voter registration. It's why I support pre-registration for high school students. And it's why I think once and for all, Minnesota should join other states in making sure that we can restore the right to vote for those who have left prison behind. Those things are imperative to making our democracy, already strong in Minnesota, what it really ought to be, what it really can be. So generally speaking, I think that we are at a turning point as a country, and arguably at a turning point as a state. We have the opportunity right now to decide what path we're going to take. Will we surrender to fear and to doubt? Or will we affirm the right of every citizen to participate in what is freely and fairly promised to them by our laws and by our Constitution? Now, I know in this time there are some people who are frustrated by the election system. They don't want to vote because they don't think it's worth their time. And they are tempted to sit it out as a way of making some sort of statement. But remember the old saying, failure to vote is not an act of rebellion. Failure to vote is an act of surrender. We should all think about that, particularly on a day like today. And we should remember Dr. King on a day like today, not just by voting or affirming our own intention to vote, but by fighting for the right to vote for every single person in our state who is eligible to do so. This call especially goes out to younger Minnesotans, to students and others who have shown such outstanding leadership in recent years. In fact, in 2020, though we were number 1 overall for voter turnout, we were number 2 for ages 18 to 29. And I have every expectation that we'll get back to the number 1 spot there as well. So on a day like today, it's important that everyone help us continue striving in the spirit of Dr. King towards building a community where every voice is recognized, a community where every voice is heard through the ballot box. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Charles Watson. My doctoral degree is in philosophy and humanities. I studied at Columbia University, taught at Stanford, and have worked to serve the students at Minneapolis College for nearly 10 years, both in the classroom and as the program coordinator of education empowerment for African American students. Over these many years of teaching and learning and service, on innumerable occasions, I have been asked to speak on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Strangely, never in July, as the United States of America celebrates its independence. I am a proponent and defender of Black History Month, but I sympathize with those who say Black history is more than the month of February, when I proclaim that the deep thinking, working faith, and living legacy of Dr. King must consume more than a long holiday weekend in January. Are we all MLK, really? Are all of us amplifying beloved community? Am I? How about you? What about them? Here's my framing of the litmus test for this year. The most, and I mean this in the Socratic gadfly sense of term, provocative offering I can share from my long symposium with the philosopher King reads as follows: the activity of dreaming, or the content of King's dream, which one is truly dead, forsaken, and forgotten? The litmus test is to answer yes, and the affirmative manifests as routine, practical activity every day in response to 2 questions. Are you a dreamer? Are you committed to promoting, healing, upholding and amplifying the content of Dr. King's dream. A dreamer imagines an alternative to the current situation, entertaining a vision of the world yet unrealized. A dreamer leaps over the limits of merely describing the world as it is, and instead wonders out loud about the way things could be or how things ought to look, unbound by matters of fact. Normative theory requires dreamers who imagine places, spaces, and arrangements better than they are now found. What is the content of Dr. King's dream? This answer is varied, multiple, and textured, yet interwoven. But for today's oration about racial justice, it is belief in the claim that, quote, voting is the foundation stone for political action, end quote. The vote is a sacred right of citizenry, and its betrayal violates, in King's words, quote, the highest mandates of our democratic traditions, end quote. King believes in the legitimacy and efficacy of voting rights in the hands of citizens. Herein lies the organizing topic for today's deliberation. The winners of this year's racial justice oratorical contest are a few of the daydreaming city light visionaries who attend Minneapolis College, and their illumination, the epiphany of what they hear reveal from concealment, blazes a trail or shines a pathway of engagement for others to follow. Will you join them on this journey to make voices heard? Will you amplify their outpouring of praise and protest? How will you accompany their community of song? Share the megaphone, pass the mic, clear the stage, quiet the crowd, turn up the speakers, and listen for argument, research, feeling, relevance, and creativity from our distinguished orators.
Greetings, my name is Dr. Matthew Palumbo, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Philosophy at Minneapolis College and the program coordinator for our new college and prison program at Lino Lakes Correctional Facility. And I am here to announce the winner of the Best Argued Essay in this year's MLK Oratorial Essay Contest, and that winner is Ernst. Congratulations, Aaron. Now, Aaron's essay is a very thoughtful, reasoned, and well-supported call for justice in the face of the suppression of voting rights and discrimination against people who are denied the right to vote. Now, Aaron's essay is full of passion, it is full of emotion, it is full of heart and hope, but that passion is supported by thoughtful and clear arguments as well. And so it has the lasting historical importance that we recognize in great pieces of philosophy and oration. Now, Aaron wrote that essay currently behind bars. Aaron is incarcerated at Lino Lakes Prison, but he is also a student at Minneapolis College. And Aaron is part of our work to bring college to prison. And this work is not just charity work. It's not visiting prisoners. It's not a carrot and a stick for good behavior. College in prison is freedom work. It's liberation work. It's Isaiah 61 kind of work. It's creating a college program that allows students who are incarcerated to be released earlier. We are creating an environment inside of the prison that focuses on education and recognizes incarcerated students as full students with all the rights and responsibilities of college students. And Aaron is part of our first cohort of students in the fall of 2021. And we are excited that the program is growing. We have support from the staff at Lino Lakes and our own faculty and staff and administration. This college and prison program was inspired by students at Minneapolis College, Somali young men who are incarcerated 6 years ago, and encouraged me to try and develop a college and prison program that for students like Aaron and hundreds others. If you are interested in supporting our Lino Lakes College and Prison program, please contact me if you're interested in teaching. If you are a student and you want to help out, if you're a staff and you want to provide support services, if you're a donor and you want to give for scholarships for young men like Aaron Ernst, please contact me or the College Foundation. Thank you very much. Great work, Aaron Ernst, and great work to all the students who are currently incarcerated at Lino Lakes. Take care.
So long as I do not firmly and irrevocably possess the right to vote, I do not possess myself. I cannot make up my mind. It is made up for me. I cannot live as a democratic citizen, observing the laws I have helped enact. I can only submit to the edict of others. These words ring with a power and a force that only truth can. I can't help but feel the passion, the hope, the desperation burning in Dr. King as he delivered them. Imploring others, willing them to see how important the right to vote is, how much a part of what it means to be American. I know that desperation and understand that burning passion. It smolders deep within me too. Like millions of Americans, disproportionately Black, I belong to an emerging subcaste, submitted to the edict of others, not truly citizens, but still saddled with all the duties, responsibilities, and expectations of citizenship, seen but unheard. Though I dream of being a first-class citizen, choices I made in my adolescence extinguished my chance to participate in the franchise of America. Now, I neither possess myself, nor have I the right of self-determination. I'm counted and taxed, yet I have no influence over the politics that impact my life. No real representation. I'm a part of a modern-day three-fifths compromise. As a felon, as a Black man, as a prisoner, as an addict, as a poor man, as one of the most marginalized individuals in this country, I would give anything for the chance to be fully American, to be truly the master of my soul and captain of my destiny. That's precisely what it means to vote. Voting is a fundamental bedrock of our society, transforming us from merely spectators to active participants in democracy. It's the action mechanism of social change, a weapon with which to fight injustice and tyranny. It places possibilities in the hands of even the most ordinary citizen, granting them the right of self-determination. At no other time are Americans more American than on Election Day. That's when the voice of the mighty and the weak share the same resound, when the haves and the have-nots stand equal. But too many take for granted their liberty to choose, to have their voices heard. They have the freedom to shout as loud as they want, but remain silent, while there are those who would die for a chance to whisper. Few constitutional liberties have faced as much fire. It seems there is always those who wish to prevent others from voting. Why? Is it power, control, fear, or is it something more sinister? The ugliness of our country's history is that women, minorities, the poor, immigrants, and any in the lower castes never meant to be first-class citizens, never part of that grand vision of the forefathers. The campaign to exclude them predates the conception of this nation and has persisted ever since. The tactics might have changed. Yesterday, it was more overt. Today, it's subtle and covert, cloaked in the doublespeak of politics and the winks of patriotism, but the war rages on. The same forces that have marginalized millions of Americans know that power lies in the voting booth, and the best way to keep power is to restrict access. They also know and fear what can happen when citizens turn out in great numbers. I watched in 2008 with jubilation as the nation celebrated the election of the 44th and first African-American president, Barack Obama. It was a historic event, felt deeply within the Black community. Finally, their voices were heard. I think back to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee volunteers who risked their lives to register Black voters in Mississippi during the height of the Jim Crow era, the brave men and women on the bridge in Selma, and the actions of countless other civil rights activists. Their sacrifices laid the groundwork for what would eventually make Barack's candidacy and win a possibility. However, too many Black Americans were unable to participate in this experience, either because their votes were suppressed or because they were silenced by disenfranchisement laws intended to disproportionately impact people of color. They sat on the sidelines as the nation took its most significant steps towards a post-racial era of equality since the Emancipation Proclamation, unable to fully embrace this victory or claim it as their own because they couldn't vote. Social justice movements like those experienced in 2020 after George Floyd's murder, where millions of Americans joined by millions around the world marched in protest of police brutality and racial injustice, must have action behind them. Action that translates into votes. That's where real change happens, where everyone, even you, can make a difference. That's where politicians' empty promises can be rectified by a reckoning of accountability. See, for too long, elected officials have chosen only to hear the voices of privileged elites with the resources to line their coffers, while the rest of us suffer. I've heard it said that education is the great equalizer, and that's true, but the ballot box is the battleground. So yes, rise up. Scream for change from the mountaintops, from the city streets to the halls of higher education. Scream for justice and equalities from the north and the south sides, from the burbs to the hoods. Yes, rise up. March to the Capitol, block traffic, defy curfews, raise united fists in front of the police and say their names. Yes, rise up. But then vote out the old vanguard who ignore the will of the people to preserve their own status and power. Vote out the defenders of iniquities and disparities who conspire to keep us merely consumer slaves. Vote out hatred and bigotry, racism, classism, sexism, fascism, and any other isms that promote division. And vote in representatives who will pass legislation that improves our lives, heals our communities, strengthens our social infrastructure. Vote in those who will fight for all the people they're supposed to represent, not just some. Vote in equality, inclusion, tolerance, love, and unity. Vote for those of us who can't. Vote for those who came before you, who struggled to ensure that you could. Vote for every Black man lynched and hung from a sycamore tree, having never tasted the sweet essence of equality. Vote for a future where everyone is counted, where everyone counts, and where every voice is heard. Vote as if your life and the lives of generations to come depends on it, because it does, and they do.
Hello, my name is Michelle Johnson. I work on the advancement team in the role of alumni and constituent relations. We are grateful for all who entered submissions for this scholarship, a conversation on social justice and racial healing. I would like to congratulate Sadman Mahir for winning an award in the category of Most Relevant. Sadman is a citizen of Bangladesh, living in the United States for the past 7 years as a student, first graduating from St. Cloud State with a bachelor's in film, and currently completing his second year at Minneapolis College in the School of Design and the Arts. I can't wait to see what he does with the combination of sound arts and film. It's Sadman's life goal to work professionally in both audio and video production as a songwriter, musician, recording artist, and soon a sound arts engineer. Thank you, Sadman, for your essay titled, "We Need a Voice So We Can Sing." Your message connecting citizenship and voting to amplify our voice is compelling.
We need a voice so we can sing. American history has seen an abundance of selective methods favoring one particular group over another. For a country that has claimed to be democratic since its secession from the crown, the flaws in the political systems in play have been very apparent. Black folks, even after being freed from slavery and being granted citizenship, have been on the receiving end of much unfairness. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had made strides in the 50s and 60s to help implement the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, but the backlash since then has still been very active. The fear among those in power when it comes to black voters being heard is clearly an issue that unfortunately still needs addressing. We have seen as recently as the 2020 presidential elections how certain structures of voter suppression keep black voters disadvantaged at polls. This speech, with the help of Dr. King's teachings, aims to not only speak on the importance of voting rights, but also on how our democracy is designed to pick and choose whom to give more of a voice. It is democracy turned upside down, said Dr. King. By this statement, he speaks on the double standards the idea of democracy has held since the inception of this nation, in the colonial terms we're most familiar with. From day one, native inhabitants of this continent had their rights continually stripped away. The earliest examples of democracy in colonial America show voting rights being given only to its white male citizens with property, clearly misconstruing the basis of a democracy. The vote was only given to a group that was deemed along the lines of the best, which clearly designated that the ideals fell more so under an aristocratic system rather than democratic. This hypocrisy has persisted for centuries and has continued to be fought against as more and more groups of people slowly became more enfranchised. To deem certain citizens less suitable for having a voice proved the supposed democracy at play to be a sham. Democracy being turned upside down was just a polite way of saying that it simply existed as means of keeping only those already in power powerful. A democratic society loses its basis when its citizens are denied the right to vote. Voting is indeed a sacred right that all participants in a society deserve to be granted. Without the vote, a citizen is without a voice, and without a voice, a citizen is no longer a citizen. They are stripped of the one tool that could possibly help them level the playing field in an unfair political reality. They are unable to fight the powers that keep them powerless. According to the words of the late great Dr. King, quote, "So long as I do not firmly and irrevocably possess the right to vote, I do not possess myself. I cannot make up my mind, it is made up for me. I cannot live as a democratic citizen observing the laws I have helped to enact. I can only submit to the edict of others," end quote. Without the vote, the word citizen is meaningless and of no use. You cannot be a citizen if you cannot participate in a way that gets your voice heard. You're simply left to play a game set by folks that do not represent you or your ideals. The vote is extremely crucial in helping implement ideals that are deemed necessary, especially when it comes to fellow humans deserving to be treated with humanity and equality. Without this right, basic societal fairness simply just cannot be ensured. According to Dr. King, quote, "Give us the ballot and we will transform the salient misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs into the calculated good deeds of orderly citizens," end quote. What an unfortunate articulation to help speak on the crime that persisted due to a lack of voice otherwise. Dr. King continues saying that, quote, "Voting is the foundation stone for political action," end quote, and can help, quote, "eventually vote out of office public officials who bar the doorway to decent housing, public safety, jobs, and decent integrated education," end quote. How are citizens supposed to trust a system that does not trust them in return? Public officials who are elected by folks deemed more suitable to be granted decision-making capabilities cannot be counted on to represent the well-being of the supposedly lesser. It is obvious we have come a long way as per suffrage in the last century, but the fact that voter suppression continues to exist goes to show how much further we must go until our democracy can finally be turned right side up. Black Americans were supposed to be able to vote as early as 1870, but added measures such as literacy tests and poll taxes kept them disenfranchised for another century. This was until the work of millions, including Dr. King, helped dismantle some of the discrimination and paved the way to a fairer electoral system through the enactment of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Unfortunately, suppression techniques, even though less obviously malicious, persist today. In the recent presidential election, we saw a clear difference in environments when it came to black majority cities. Folks standing in lines outside all day because of supposed machine errors, false claims of voter fraud, and not to mention the high rate of black incarceration that keeps so many from regaining their voting rights. The fight is clearly not over, but increasingly higher black voter turnouts, despite the conditions, show how much progress is being made and how much black voices are demanding to be heard. Dr. King would continue to fight all the forms of political unfairness that have risen since its time, but we can also rest assured that he would be very proud of today's Black America. Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Raymond Wise, and I bring you greetings from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, where I serve as a professor of practice in the African American and African Diaspora Studies Department. I also serve as the Associate Director of the African American Arts Institute, a special division devoted to preserving African American music and dance. And I also conduct the African American Choral Ensemble, and I'm so glad to be with you today. Now, let me first extend my thanks and gratitude to Minneapolis College for your invitation to share with you today, and I commend you and thank you for hosting this event. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Dr. Charles Watson, chairperson of the Minneapolis College MLK Day Committee, for his assistance, and to all who worked on his team to facilitate this event. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Dr. Sharon Pierce, president of Minneapolis College, with whom I understand we have a Baltimore connection. I'm a native of Baltimore, Maryland. I believe Dr. Pierce graduated from Morgan State College in Baltimore, where my great-grandmother, Margaret Saunders, was in the first graduating class and earned her degree in 1895. Then thanks and congratulations to all Minneapolis College students and high school seniors from the metro area high schools who submitted speeches or performance pieces for the annual Racial Justice Oratorical Contest, especially the winners whose works were chosen for today's event. And thanks to all of those who are watching today. Thanks for sharing in this event. I'm so honored to be in your virtual space today. And then finally, thanks to all who've gone before us to blaze trails and create paths upon which we can walk and continue the work that still needs to be done to bring liberty and justice to all people. Furthermore, more importantly, to all who gave their lives to make the right to vote possible. Now, when I heard the beautiful words of our hosts, contest winners, and others, I felt as if there was little left to share. And they have so adequately and effectively addressed the theme of the day. However, I will try to add my thoughts regarding the theme and what has already been shared. So our theme today is We Are All MLK, Amplifying Beloved Community. Now, when I heard the theme, We Are All MLK, Amplifying Beloved Community, my initial response was, no, we are not. Neither do many of us want to be MLK. And there are not many folks rushing to sign up to sacrifice their very lives for the cause of freedom, liberty, and justice. In fact, Where have all the leaders gone? Where are the MLKs in today's society? Sadly, there are not many because there was and there is still a high price to pay to be a Martin Luther King Jr. Nevertheless, after reconsidering the theme, my subsequent response was to ask the question, who was MLK? And while most of us know him as one of the most iconic civil rights leaders of the 20th century, he was a Baptist preacher at his core. He was a man of faith that trusted his God, like Moses, to deliver him and his people from bondage. He was also a pastor. He cared for those assigned to his flock and led them as a caring shepherd into greener pastures. Then he was a dreamer and visionary. He had a vision of a day when America would realize and actualize the true meaning of its founding principles. So, when considering who Dr. Martin Luther King was in reality, I then understood that we could all be MLK. We can all be people of faith who look not at what we see, but live and act based on what we believe can yet be. We can all be pastoral shepherds who care for one another, especially those considered the least. Then we can all be dreamers who envision a brighter future and expect that one day it will be realized. What a world it would be if we lived in communities of faith, communities of caregivers, and communities of visionaries. As we consider the meaning of what King called the beloved community, I am sure that he imagined a world and community where it was not just about survival of the fittest, but survival of the group. I'm confident that he imagined a world and community not just about competition, but cooperation. I am certain that he imagined a world and community not just about individual rights, but a collective responsibility. I am certain that he imagined a world and community not just separateness and independence, but corporateness and interdependence. And can you imagine a world and community whose primary objective is to establish a safe place where the needs of all its people are met? Can you imagine a world where everyone is fed? I believe that is the beloved community that Dr. King envisioned. And as we consider the beloved community of which Martin Luther King Jr. spoke, one of the greatest threats to this beloved community is that we do not allow all to be included in our communities. So I began to wonder, what keeps us from having this beloved community? Then I realized it was simply the lack of community. Now that sounds simplistic, yet when I think of the notion of community, I think of a group to which one belongs, a group in which you have the freedom to be and express yourself without condemnation, a group where you feel comfortable sharing your inner secrets, knowing that you will not be judged or treated differently. I decided to Google the definition of community and discovered two especially applicable definitions. The first suggested that a community is a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. Then the second definition defined community as a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. So by stating that a lack of community hinders the realization of King's beloved community, I'm trying to convey that we cannot create a beloved community if we do not allow everyone to be a part of the community. And as we move through various stations in life, we all seek to belong. We seek to belong to a community of people who share values, interests, and goals. Yet, I'm sure that we have all felt like an outsider at one time or another. We have all felt unwelcome within some circle. And this feeling raises the issue that the most significant challenge we have to achieving a beloved community is that we do not accept everyone into our communities. Now, for years, redlining did not allow blacks and other people of color to live in specific communities. For years, those with considerable economic means have not accepted those with lower economic means. There have been those who have attained high education levels who have considered those without degrees inferior or even ignorant. And these practices have unfortunately led to the establishment of us and thems, the haves and the have-nots, the insiders and the outsiders. And it has led to a lack of one integrated community. Now, indeed, as we look at our society, we can quickly point the finger at those in power who have systematically and purposely excluded those they believe are unworthy of their group. We do this in so many ways, whether a colleague does not invite you to the faculty group or after work gathering, or maybe it's a teenager who does not like the way you dress or the way you wear your hair or your popularity or the neighborhood from which you come. So they post an unkind remark or start a rumor. Or maybe it's the shunning of the nerd or the geek who just does not fit because they're deemed socially awkward. Well, we have a way of saying to one another, you do not belong here. And even in our daily lives, we spend so much time disenfranchising and marginalizing others that very few of us genuinely feel a part of a loving community, let alone the greater society. Now, rather than build community, we end up fostering the emergence of disenfranchised, disengaged, and ultimately disgruntled citizens who end up posing a threat to themselves and others because they have been cast out of the community. For whatever reason, the color of their skin, the way they look, the way they talk, their cultural heritage or ethnicity. When we ostracize, criticize, disregard, and dismiss people, we do not build community, but endanger the community. And it is often those who have no vested interest in fellowship or sharing who find it easy to bring harm to others. So if we want change globally, if we really want to see the beloved community actualized, we must also recognize where we are not acting in good faith at the personal and local level and commit to accepting all people into our communities. So I hear someone ask, what does the beloved community have to do with voting? Well, our society has established systems and rules and laws to exclude people from being a part of the community legally. And since the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, legislative bodies have created laws to institutionalize systems that keep people outside of the community where they should have a connection and vested interest and a voice. And groups of influential people have determined ways to acquire resources and keep them to themselves and exclude and penalize all who would dare to tear down walls of separation to build economic stability and social equality for all. And many have even used the denial of the voting right to maintain these repressive and immoral systems. Now, by denying the right and access to voting, disenfranchised people of color have been kept outside the walls of power and self-determination. And I believe that if Dr. King were still alive today, he would argue that the right to vote is an essential element for a successful life and the key component for the establishment and maintenance of the beloved community. For having the right to vote moves one from the fringes of society and thrusts one into a community of power where one's voice can be heard. Furthermore, when exercising one's right to vote, I believe it is amplified and becomes more effective when exercised in the beloved community whose collective vote brings empowerment and gives voice. Now, I believe Dr. Martin Luther King shared the desperation in his soul when he wrote these powerful words, quote, "But even more, all types of conniving methods are still being used to prevent Negroes from becoming registered voters. The denial of this sacred right is a tragic betrayal of the highest mandates of our democratic traditions, and it is democracy turned upside down. So long as I do not firmly and irrevocably possess the right to vote, I do not possess myself. I cannot make up my mind. It is made up for me. I cannot live as a democratic citizen, observing the laws I have helped to enact. I can only submit to the edict of others. So our most urgent request to the President of the United States and every member of Congress is to give us the right to vote. Give us the ballot, and we will transform the salient misdeeds of bloodthirsty mobs into the calculated good deeds of orderly citizens. Voting is the foundation stone for political action. And with it, the Negro can eventually vote out of office public officials who bar the doorways to decent housing, public safety, jobs, and decent integrated education. It is now obvious that the basic elements so vital to Negro advancement can only be achieved by seeking redress from government at local, state, and federal levels. To do this, the vote is essential." Unquote. Now, these words written by Dr. King in 1957 and 1965 are so relevant because they still ring true today in 2022. Yes, we must acknowledge that we have come a long way. However, it seems as if we have not progressed at all in many ways. We are not living in a post-racial society, for racism, discrimination, and injustice still raise their ugly heads to marginalize and disenfranchise people of color and lower economic means, preventing them from realizing and obtaining the American dream and living as first-class American citizens. In many ways, as we consider our nation today, it seems as if we've been thrust back into the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Yet, in other ways, it seems that we have gone back even further, before 1863, when people of color were considered property and objects to be thrown away rather than human beings to be saved. Now, between the lines and spaces of King's statements, I hear his heart saying that we cannot survive and lead whole lives and affect change in our community and world without the right to vote. I hear King acknowledging that voting is a sacred right we cannot take for granted or live without. For if one takes your vote, they take your life. If one can take your vote, they can silence you and exile you to a place of lack and meager existence along the margins of society outside of the community. And to be subject to the dictates of another and not possess a sense of self-determination that voting may bring denies one the benefit of making the societal change that will benefit their lives and lead to the fulfillment of their destiny. And as we stand at this moment in history with so many legislatures passing laws to suppress voting rights, it seems as if there are those who are trying to take the very life and sustenance away from those who are already marginalized, disenfranchised, poor, and oppressed. Through gerrymandering that does not account for the actual demographics reflected in recent census reports. Through suppressive and repressive laws that make it more difficult for people of color to vote. Through laws that create hurdles to prevent the ease of voting. Then by appointing politicians and establishing laws to give them the power to overturn elections and change the will of the people as it suits their particular political party or ideology. People are being robbed of their right to vote. Institutional boundaries are being set to minimize opportunities for the advancement and upward mobility of people of color within our society. Some are purposing to divide and destroy communities for their gain and advantage. The right to vote is an issue that marginalized communities cannot afford to dismiss. The ability to vote will give communities the ability to reclaim what has been and is being taken away. And unfortunately, while we preach about the power and importance of the vote, years and years of systemic racism and disenfranchisement have caused many people of color to expect little from their elected leaders, who often come nigh and make promises during the voting season and disappear once elected. They feel disappointed by the political process and resolve that living beneath their human potential should be the norm. Consequently, so many disenfranchised people of color have come to believe that voting is of little significance because they cannot see or feel its impact on their everyday lived experience. And sadly, when many people of color have voted in the past, too many politicians have given speeches on the campaign trail but lived a different reality once they hit the walls and halls of Congress. Many politicians have not fought for the needs of all the constituents they serve and represent, especially those who often sacrificed and overcame numerous hurdles, racial barriers, and political obstacles to help them get elected. Brothers and sisters, this ought not to be. Years of disappointment have caused people of color to withdraw from the political process. So how does one reconcile the passion of King and all who sacrificed and died for the right to vote with a disillusioned or apathetic views of those whose lives have not been impacted and affected by the power that voting is said to produce? How do we revive the passion for voting in the 21st century and mobilize disengaged people to understand and exert their power by exercising their right to vote? How do we convince the skeptical that voting can indeed bring renewed life and sustenance to their individual and collective worlds? Well, I believe that Dr. King would argue that voting is one of those crucial things that allows our society to live or die. If and when we master the power of voting, we can vote to construct communities where hope and faith live among those with shared values and goals. So, to those ready to walk away from the political process and surrender their right to vote, Dr. King would argue that there are some things in life that you can probably live without, but the right to vote is not one of them. You could probably live without the latest iPhone. You could probably live without spending every day on TikTok or Facebook. You can probably live without a Rolls Royce or a Tesla. You probably don't have to live in a $10 million mansion on a hill in Beverly Hills. But you can't live without the right to vote. Just as if you take away food, it won't be long before you die of starvation. If you take away water, it won't be long before you die of dehydration. If you take away air, it won't be long before you suffocate from the inability to breathe. Likewise, the right and power of voting can bring life just as its denial can bring death. So I hear someone asking the question, well, what is so significant about voting that makes it crucial to life and the pursuit of happiness? Well, in my mind, voting is synonymous to the word voice. Having a vote gives us a voice to speak truth to power. Then when used as a community, it gives us a collective power to make a difference. And when I consider someone who cannot use their voice, they lose communication with others. Yet the voice is one of the most potent ways for the community to voice their dreams and aspirations. And I acknowledge that there are many ways to use one's voice. You can use your physical voice to stand up and speak out. You can use the voice of your gifts and talents to create music and art, dance, poetry, and rap that express the sentiments of your heart. You can use the voice of your presence by protesting, by showing up. But the most significant way to make your voice heard, to affect the community and build societal change, is to vote. Voting brings accountability to those who promised to deliver. Voting allows the powerless to demand better. So we must vote in presidential elections and in local elections where our lives are affected daily. We must send people to represent us that will really represent and fight for us. By using the voice of our vote, we can begin to change systems that have been established to discriminate and maintain societal inequities. By using the voice of our vote, we can begin to tear down walls of hatred and racism that have been constructed to diminish and deny those who have been oppressed. As former President Barack Obama always says, don't boo, vote. Don't complain, vote. And as Ernst, our essay winner, said so eloquently in his essay, vote out and vote in. Vote out the old vanguard. Vote out the defenders and inequalities and disparities. Vote out hate, bigotry, and any other isms that promote division. And then vote in representatives who will pass legislation that improves our lives. Vote in those who will fight for all the people they're supposed to represent. Vote in tolerance, inclusion, equality, love, and unity. Vote as if your life and the lives of generations to come depends on it, because it does, and they do. Then do not underestimate the significance and power of one vote. So often we hear people express, my single vote will not count. However, I dare you tell that to Shelley Simmons, who won a seat in the Virginia House of Delegates by one single vote, or Sarah Buxton, who lost an election by one vote. What if that one person had not cast their vote? Or what if you were the one that could have cast the winning vote and made the difference? Your vote can be the determining vote to make a change in your community. So vote. Now, I must commend all the presenters who shared in today's celebration, and certainly commend the winners of the oratorical contest, because as I read their speeches and listened to the introductions, I realized that everyone tapped into the essence of the plight we face today with regard to freedom, liberty, justice, equality, and the right to vote. And as I prepared, I also noticed something. We were all sharing the same story. We were all in agreement that the right to vote is important. So if we're all saying the same thing year after year, why is the pain and struggle of the disenfranchised not resonating in the halls and walls of Congress and the legislative chambers? Well, I believe it's because there have been some rulers in high places for whom the accessibility of voting is not favorable. If dismantled, some systems, rules, and laws will disadvantage the haves and advantage the have-nots. And these rules and systems have hindered those who are considered the least in society from rising to stand and fulfill the American dream and become first-class American citizens. Then our voices are not resounding, and we have not seen significant change because we have to do more than just speak. We must vote. It's been over 50 years since the initial Voting Rights Act was signed into law. However, it's been chipped away and is eroding as we speak. So what was granted in 1965 is slowly being taken away as those in positions of authority fear their power is slipping away. Furthermore, it can be taken away if we do vote. Yet, we have become comfortable with the little that has been given and taken our eyes off the more that is yet to be received. I recently saw an episode of The Boondocks in which Dr. Martin Luther King returned to our current time. He was disappointed to find blacks comfortable with the status quo and not continuing the fight. He found blacks accepting what was given and not demanding what was withheld. And while he acknowledged the great process that came from his work and activism, he also saw a great need to continue the fight. So, my friends, we have not arrived. The fight is not over. The current battle over voting rights is still waging, and we must join the fight. Creative protests are acceptable, but they must be followed up by activity. For you see, protest gets attention, but voting leads to change. And sadly, while we're making noise in protest, we're not always pulling levers at voting precincts. And while marching in the streets, we're not always marching to the polls. So protest without voting is a release without a definitive resolution. Our system of justice and equality is turned upside down. The democratic process is turned upside down and in danger of being eliminated. As Saidman Mahir stated so wonderfully in his essay, this hypocrisy has persisted for centuries and has continued to be fought against as more and more groups of people slowly become more enfranchised. And to deem certain citizens less suitable for having a voice proved the supposed democracy at play to be a sham. Democracy being turned upside down was just a polite way of saying that it simply existed as a means of keeping those already in power powerful. Dr. King said that democracy was turned upside down. It is true when it seems that the minority rules. That's upside down. So often those in the minority speak the loudest, and even when uninformed in their assessments, it seems that the minority of people often have the loudest megaphone, spewing falsehoods and fear that are causing people to align based upon their race and privilege rather than their common human needs. Democracy is turned upside down when the powerful, though few in number, outweigh the wishes and needs of the millions of powerless. It seems to be true when the haves mean more than the have-nots. Things are turned upside down when those who established the Constitution do not live by or protect the very document they established and deemed vital to a healthy society. Things are indeed turned upside down when money means more than human life and the needs of a dying community. There is a money machine funded by special interest groups, supported by lobbyists who are invested in perpetuating what is undesirable for the masses, but beneficial for the few. And how sad it is that the economy is more important than our fellow citizens' health and safety. Then lies, falsehoods, and conspiracies are being launched to constantly misinform and sway voter opinions. My friends, democracy is turned upside down. So what shall we do? We must turn things right side up. When you begin to see the polls on issues such as common sense gun legislation, child care, paid family leave, expansion of Medicare and health care, there is a silent majority who knows and supports what is right. Yet, while they speak with their physical voices and respond to Gallup polls, they do not always speak with their votes. But it's high time for the majority of those who want better to stand up and speak out. It's time for this quiet majority to let their voices be heard, not just through their speaking, through their gifts and their protests, but through the power of their vote. It's time to turn this thing right side up. It's time to turn things around to establish a beloved community where there is liberty and justice for all. It's time to move beyond the things that divide us and embrace the things that join us together. We must understand that when joined together in a united community, we gain power that will fulfill our collective and individual needs. We can exert power to bring equality and feed everybody within the community. I recently learned that even the Black Panthers joined with poor whites and even white supremacists in the 60s and 70s, not because their skin was the same, but because they realized that the human conditions they faced as poor and oppressed people were the same. So if we can see ourselves as one human family rather than enemies, we can achieve a beloved community. Now, despite all the challenges we face, we have the power of our vote. And if we can come together as a beloved community of like-minded brothers and sisters, we can affect change. Unlike the wealthy, the poor cannot pull massive sums of money from their coffers to influence elections and politicians. But they can pull millions of impoverished, disenfranchised people together to vote and declare at the ballot box that they demand change. Unlike the powerful, the powerless cannot just make a call and have people create laws to appease their wishes and whims. But they can become activists in the community and call on their neighbors and friends to rise and turn out to vote and effect change. As a pastor, preacher, and dreamer, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was assigned to lead and shepherd a community of people. And in this community, there were those who had been marginalized. There were those who had been oppressed. There were those who were disenfranchised and told to step aside so that others could come through and take their place. This community of folks who were often cast aside or left behind were not left behind because of lack of giftedness, talent, or intellect. It was due to instituted systems and the inability of those in power to understand and value the treasure of those who stood before them. A people who came from a different world, through their ingenuity and vision, built the infrastructure of a new world, while seldom being thanked or credited with the tremendous task they had accomplished. All those who helped to build this country should have a say in its development and have a say in their own destiny. And while some politicians complain about the cost of providing services that will lead to equity and upward mobility for the disenfranchised who faithfully pay their taxes, as a society, we invest in what we think is essential. We pay for the things we want regardless of the cost. Unfortunately, America has often told its people of color and low economic means that they are not worthy of investment. It's told them that they are not important. Yes, people of color are important enough to stand on the front lines as essential workers, but not important enough to have a fair living wage. They are important enough to work in the fields to harvest the crops for the nation, but not important enough to pass the DREAM Act or immigration laws that will offer a path to citizenship or access to the American dream without fear of deportation and discrimination. They are important enough to serve in our hospitals and schools and sacrifice their safety and lives to bring life to others, yet they are not important enough to pay a decent wage, wear a mask, or get a vaccine. I recently heard one senator say when asked why he would not support the proposed Build Back Better Act and Voting Rights Act that would guarantee more significant equity in voting rights. He said, "If you want people to vote your way, you had better go to the ballot box." And while I was enraged at his lack of compassion and the sarcasm with which he spoke, I heard him speak a greater truth. If you want people to make change that will positively affect your life, you need to vote in more people who see the value of the change you desire to create. The only way to change the system is to vote for leaders who will demand and vote for change that positively affects your life. So, we must pass the John Lewis Voting Acts right. We must pass a law that stops state legislatures from denying and repressing the votes of people of color. We must pass laws that do not allow for the overturning of election. So what are we going to do? What are you going to do? My brothers and sisters, we must stand up and speak out. It's time to let our voices be heard. America would not be what it is today without those it constantly tries to disenfranchise. Latinos performed jobs that many Americans do not want to do. Blacks served on the front lines as essential workers in low-paying jobs providing services America could not operate without. And this reminds me of a quote from Isabel Wilkinson's book on the Great Migration. I was arrested by this statement. The most aggressive thing they can do is leave. So, what if disenfranchised people took a stand and decided not to accept the status quo? What if they left behind the practice of being marginalized and disenfranchised? This is what happened during the Great Migration. Blacks left the South by millions, and soon the South had to wake up. And eventually, the colored and white only signs came down. Public facilities were made accessible. That's also what happened with the Montgomery bus boycott. Blacks stopped riding buses. And look what happened. Change occurred. Every year we spend trillions of dollars making others wealthy who will not share the wealth and fruit that our labor has produced. What would happen if we stopped spending? Change would come. It's time to bring the voices of the disenfranchised and marginalized together to form a community that will use its collective power to bring societal change so that we can live in a beloved community. It's time to respect, honor, and celebrate those who have labored to build and maintain this country, often without any thanks or appreciation. It's time for the marginalized in our society to rise, stand together, and demand a new day. It's time for the disenfranchised to feel the power of their voices through the exercising of their votes. Rather than be divided and pitted against one another, we must join together with those of common need and purpose to recognize, then exercise the collective power of our vote. Now, as a preacher, I too have a voice. As a composer, musician, and singer, I too have a voice. As a Black male, I too have a voice. As a human being, I too have a voice. As an American, I too have a voice. But as a unified collective, we have a voice and vote to make a significant change in the world. But ultimately, to be honest, I do not want to just use my voice to shout about justice denied. I want to use my voice to sing about liberty and freedom delivered. America's national anthems and hymns belong to all of us. Am I any less patriotic when America suffers? Am I any less American when my family members die in war or return wounded after defending America? Am I any less of an American as I stand on the front lines to help build and sustain a nation? I want to sing the songs of America because America has realized its promise of liberty and recognized my contribution. I want to sing, "My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty." I want to sing, "This is my country, land of my birth." I want to sing, "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." I want to sing the songs of America that rightfully belong to me. I want to claim them as my own because I too helped build this country. I'm reminded of the Langston Hughes poem, "I Too Sing America." He says this, "I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table. When company comes, nobody'll dare say to me, 'Eat at the kitchen.' Then they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America." So we must use our collective voices to vote and change our communities, states, and nation. But ultimately, we hope to see freedom, liberty, and justice realized for all so that we can use our voices to sing in the beloved community. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Tremaine Lindsay Jr., and I'm the Vice President of Equity and Inclusion here at Minneapolis College. The Bridging the Equity Gap Scholarship Program is an opportunity for Black and Indigenous male students to be a part of a community engaged in experiential learning, mentorship, and leadership. Through academic, social, and cultural support, students are equipped with a quality education and the tools to see greatness in themselves, others, and the community. These scholars receive academic support, coaching, peer engagement, mentoring, and financial assistance. Now, you will hear directly from members of our very first cohort of students about their experience.
Hi, my name is Ahmed, and I'm from Bridge Scholar.
Hello, my name is Noah Lemkioli, and I am a Bridge Scholar.
I'm Anthony Figueroa, and I am a Bridge Scholar.
Easy way to describe it is all scholarship for free classes.
It's a way to give yourself an opportunity to learn, give yourself an opportunity to meet new people.
At the end of the semester, I had like a vision. I had goals to complete. I have something that I have to drive for.
You can find other peers or even other mentors to help you fulfill your one major.
I would describe it as an amazing program. I recommend it to anybody. It made me tap into my true potential. Anybody can do it, no matter who you are, no matter what background you're from.
Your peers, your staff, they're going to be there for you. They're going to encourage you. They're going to go above your limits and make sure that you can definitely succeed in college.
I would like to once again thank each of you for joining us for our annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Observance. It is truly an honor to have the ability to serve you, the community. You all are truly an inspiration to our campus. As we all seek to adhere to the theme of amplifying our beloved community, I encourage you all to take some time to gain a full understanding of what it truly means to amplify. I'll leave you with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s 1956 Birth of a New Age address. An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. Thank you, and go in peace.
Thank you.